gallery. Do you remember the phrase, "How about a nice game of chess?"
War games!
Yeah.
Yep.
This movie made me feel like that so much. And that's just the content. I mean, there's a lot about the movie itself, but so I went not with the peanut gallery. The peanut gallery was not allowed to come to this one. Yeah, and I wouldn't even if you said, I would like to, I would have said, nah, you don't want to go see this one. This is not for you. This is not peanut gallery stuff. It is also, in the Netherlands, it's rated for 12 and over. And on IMDb it says it's like an R rating, which I suppose is the American rating. The reason for that is, for the 12 is the subject matter. For the R is the naked lady, because there's a naked lady in this.
There's one naked lady, so it's R-rated?
I think that's it.
Was the naked lady doing anything?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, fair then.
And in the Netherlands, we're a little bit less worried about naked ladies. So, but the 12 rating, I have to say, I would not be taking a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old to this movie without a lot of prep. And that actually comes straight into the next problem with this movie, is that we were talking to a Dutch lady who went to see this movie, and she has no particular history lesson. The Dutch history doesn't tell you, other than very, very short events like bomb was dropped, about this. So she had no idea who this Oppenheimer was, and this film is supposed to tell you. And she came out and said, I still know nothing, because the film, this is the big problem with the film is non-linear storytelling. And does that have to be problematic? Non-linear storytelling is not my favorite at the best of times, but it can be done right, and I think actually the script was good enough to pull it off, but the film, and I'm going to pull this onto the director, even though this is the purview of the costumes, is that the director has to decide what the costumes are going to be, and then the costume department has to do that. The story linearly is set from 1926 to 63. But because you're telling it non-linearly, so you're getting a little bit of 1926, and you get a little 54, and then you get a little of 42, and then you get and that would be followable if the fashion was right. But it isn't, because the only reason I found out that there's a certain scene that was early in the movie was set in 1928, because somebody later said it was 1928. And that first scene should have been, in 28, should have been fully flapper. All the girls flapper stuff, all the guys doing the dandy stuff that goes with it. And these were students, these were young people.
The girl's hair, even.
And all the girls, and there are not many girls, but any girl you see in the entire period wearing is half long a hair with a little bit of a wave in it, and they're wearing cardigans the entire period, and that is just not true. And then this girl we were talking to, who drowned in this, if the film had defined each of the periods more strongly with a look, or even a color palette, or preferably both, then this girl wouldn't have drowned in the story, because this film is supposed to tell the story of Oppenheimer. She's not supposed to have to go first read the Wikipedia on Oppenheimer before you can follow it. And when I went with somebody who was actually a scientist himself, I'm a physics girl. I love my physics and my sci-fi. So I knew about half the names of the people involved in this. There are a lot of people I didn't know because I didn't particularly look up this Oppenheimer. I knew roughly what he was doing. I didn't realize he was so. He's the theory guy, and I didn't realize he was that much of a theory guy. But it kind of makes sense that the theory guy is the one who starts to run the project because all the practical guys are doing the stuff around him. So it kind of made sense. So that made sense. The compliment I have to give the movie is on how to portray particle physics to somebody who hasn't particle physics in an artistic way, because he in the non-linear version where he is in the earliest time when he's still a student, he's starting to see particles physicking around him, and the film shows that really nicely. So that was this is why the film is actually good. But this non-linearness is so difficult that even, and I'm really good at following stories, so I followed it, but I was there were some. I'll get to that. But the person I was with, who is the scientist, he said he drowned in it. He was because he already actually knows the story because he lived it. He was there for some of that, not very close, but in the same time and aware, and so he knows it from news stories. He knows all of that from. And he said, no, you just don't have enough to hold on to. This in combination with the fact that there is a lot of people in this, and I knew a bunch of the names, and they repeat them, but they don't repeat them enough. You just need a little bit more labeling. Peanut Gallery has a question.
Yeah, so who do you think was supposed to be the audience of this movie in that case?
That's an interesting question. There is an instant audience in America for American history. This is American history, so fair enough. There is, because the Christopher Nolan who directed this is half English, half American. So on the English side, English are always interested in history of any kind and good movies. This movie is good. It's just not great. That's the problem. But there's a tradition in American biopics, because it's kind of a biopic. It's a biopic of Oppenheimer and his event, but the guy is his event, so fair enough. In America, there is an unfortunate fashion of just, when we're doing a biopic, so it must be like a docudrama. And then you get the most boring thing ever, and we've seen it. It's really boring because... And Christopher Nolan doesn't do that. Christopher Nolan realizes that this also needs to be an actual movie. It cannot just be a docudrama. So he makes a point. Then I have to say that because events happen that also need to... Actually, I don't think they need... There's a whole bunch of events that happened after the big events, political stuff, that... Apparently he felt that needs to be in the movie, and I don't think it did. I mean, it gets us Robert Downey Jr. doing a great job of playing the nasty dude, but it's the bit, it's very boring. In the end, they make the point that the film point they make properly, but I think the timing is not, could have been better. There could have been a little bit more strongly build up towards that than a point in the middle where he talks to Einstein about it, and then later when it comes the way Einstein said, because Einstein is always right. Einstein, by the way, played by Tom Conti, who, yes, the peanut gallery is very happy now, because Tom Conti is the undiscovered talent of England. He's now unfortunately too old to do big roles anymore. But I've seen him do a lot of wonderful stuff. Tom Conti is wonderful. Every actor in this thing is wonderful. So that's not the issue at all. But the cinematography, the black and white. If he had done the black, because the black and white, and I thought at first the black and white, that is for the later scenes where they have the big hearing in probably 54, the McCarthy type hearings. So that's all going to be the black and white stuff. And then there was a scene where I thought, yeah, but that's earlier, isn't it? But because the looks are all the same, I can't tell. So I was going, should that be black and white or should that be color? But that's black and... So, the black and whites, I mean, seriously.
When you're basically filming in the era of most stuff was still black and white, even until the early 60s, there's no point in making a black and white movie.
And the stupid thing is that there's earlier stuff, and that should be... Actually, the black and white one thing is probably 57. There's a little bit earlier, 50 or 49, 50 or something like that, because nobody has any dates. When there are scenes in a small space where he's talking to a committee about stuff, and the colors, it's colored, is beautiful. It's exactly like a picture that we have now from a 54, from an old album of these slightly greenied, that certain little green tints that have everything, and that's on that. And if they had done that for all the black and white stuff, just do it in color and do it in the color of the day.
Well, sepia is a thing. And you can make statements with sepia.
It's just then taking away the color altogether. But then, if you're going to do this properly, then you go to the 1928 version of the time, which is just before talkies happened.
But what happened in film and cinema has no bearing on this story.
So the entire black and white has no bearing on the story.
However, fashion does have a bearing on the story. Because
exactly.
You don't do a Jane Austen adaptation without empire dresses.
And I don't understand because you have them coming to the Netherlands in 28, and these are young Dutch people. They're going to be flappering all over the place. And then there's later when the war period happens. I know that these girls, and yesterday we saw a picture in 47 where they're doing the full the victory, not quite the victory coast, but the head thingies, and they do fashion. People did fashion, and for some reason this movie is not doing fashion, and it's fine if you don't want to do fashion, but if you're non-linear, you better give somebody else to hold on to.
It's very simple, but you can put a date, like a year on scenes?
He absolutely doesn't want to do that. I understand why you don't want to do that, but you have to give us something. So he comes to the Netherlands in 28. This is actually pretty early on in the movie, even though non-linear, but they talk about it more later and this movie, I think, anything that was science that I knew was right. I checked with the person I was with, and he said anything he knew about science in this movie is right. And on the Wikipedia page, the Oppenheimer page, and I checked with the Dutch one. I wanted to see if the Dutch one was different, because it says there that he learned Dutch in 3 months to do a talk in the Netherlands.
In Wikipedia or in the movie?
Both.
Ouch.
Because it's on the Wikipedia, and that's why I checked. Because it's on the Wikipedia, and the Dutch one is exactly the same, so it's a translation of the American one, which just means it's not originally Dutch, which is important, because I'm gonna call on on somebody learning Dutch in 3 months if he's actually a scientist and actually doing something else because he was doing science in Germany at the same time. I'm calling bullshit on that.
So,
But that's not the movie's fault.
was Oppenheimer's German native?
No.
Ah.
I'll explain. And so what happened, and I think this is, what happened in reality. He was American born, but because at the time he wanted to do molecular theory, and there wasn't any in the States. And then he went to England, and then he found that in England, yes, but it was practical stuff, and he was not a practical guy. So they basically said, go to Germany. That's in the movie. Niels Bohr sends him to Germany. You need to go to Germany. And it's very simple. In Germany, they're doing science in German. There's no English. You're doing it in German. There's not even a talk. That's now we're doing stuff in English. Then they did science, hard science in German. So he's in Germany for, I think, 4 years doing stuff. And he is good at languages as well. He's interested in languages. He famously actually read Sanskrit in the original, but it would have taken him time to do that. So he was no slouch at languages. That's fair enough. The reason I call bullshit on it, because he's doing German, sure, he's no problem. But to do a talk in another language, you need a lot of vocabulary and grammar and time. And the grammar you can possibly learn fast, especially if you already know a couple of languages that are in the ballpark language group. You get similar grammars. What kills you is the vocabulary. No matter how much of a brainiac you are, you need time to do the vocabulary. Our queen, Maxima, who is an import from a Spanish-speaking country originally, but she already knew English to proficiency level, had to learn Dutch to a working level, and I'm not saying 100% proficiency, and I think she took 6 months to do it, full-time. Full-time teacher with all the motivation and money that anyone can come up with. And she has a working knowledge of Dutch. It is not perfect. Nobody said it needed to be. But she can talk to any Dutch person anywhere about anything. And for him to do in 3 months something that is an actual talk in the Netherlands, forget it. It's not going to happen. However, what I think happened in actual reality is that he sat down with some friends before the talk and said, hey, can I say something in Dutch? And they prepared a couple of lines for him in Dutch, a little anecdote. And he presented that, and everybody was very happy with that. And then he proceeded to have to talk in the language of science, which is German. However, the reason it's not on the Wikipedia like that, or the Dutch one or the American one, is that no Dutch person was going to say that to you now, because German, because of history that came right after that, World War II, is not popular. And we changed the language of science to English because German has lost all its appeal. However, it gives the movie a problem that he has to do these events, and they have the actor who is he is really good, he is excellent, nothing wrong with him. And again, I'm going to put the problem back onto the movie, because this guy is an Irish guy, so not a native Dutch speaker, because Irish guys tend to not to be native Dutch speakers. I don't fault him for that. But he has to say a couple of lines in Dutch, because that's what the Wikipedia said, that he did his thing in Dutch. And what comes out of his mouth, I didn't parse it as Dutch. Person with me said it's Dutch, but it's real bad. I parsed it straight up as German. It was bad. It's. And that's not on the actor, and I know it's not on the actor because I've seen other actors of similar calibers with enough practice, enough time, and enough wanting to do it right. The real bummer of the entire little setup is that right after Cillian does his effed up Dutch line, there is a German line in perfect German, done by a German, who's playing Heisenberg, because then they switch back to Germany, and it's perfect because it's a real German.
It's a German guy. Yeah. So this. How's his German?
Who's German?
The guy who plays Oppenheimer.
The guy who plays Oppenheimer is Irish.
But does he speak German in the movie?
Not at all. This is exactly the only line of foreign he speaks.
Okay, so here's my gripe with Hollywood. That every time they need a Dutch person, something to say in Dutch, or a Dutch location, they think, oh, Croatia will do if we put some tulips there. We'll just let the actor read the line and... Oh, we don't know that Dutch has 7 more vowels than any other language, or any other comparable language, so we don't need to worry about that. And the actor will completely and utterly drown in trying to pronounce something, and nobody seems to think of phoning up their favorite Dutch person, because everybody in this world knows a Dutch person, because we go everywhere, and they never phone one up and say, could you coach our actor, please?
And they are in England, and this Irish actor who is Irish, and Irish itself also has funny vowel sounds. Yes, Dutch has funny vowel sounds, but Irish has them. The Welsh also has them, so I was actually sort of annoyed. I mean, not his fault that he wasn't Welsh. It helps to be Welsh to do the accents, because Welsh also has many really weird vowel sounds and consonant sounds, and we have them too. The thing about Dutch is that if you get the consonant, if you get the vowels wrong, it becomes literally unintelligible. So.
And without training, you cannot guess how to make the sounds from the written language. The written language is absolutely...
It's off for if you're in English, coming from English, all the vowels are going to be different in Dutch.
Dutch written down is regular, and you can read it all if you know how to pronounce it. You need a lesson in how to pronounce all of the sounds and how to read from the page. After that, you can read anything. But if you don't take a lesson, you cannot guess it.
Yeah, and so I'm putting this back on the director. That's his purview. That's throwing Cillian under the bus here, because he's good enough.
Language coach.
You need a language coach and more time. You need to give him time, and it's a question of keep repeating the line. Then the person says the line. You keep repeating until you get it right, and that's. And the thing is, the rest of this movie, the non-linear choices notwithstanding, is beautiful. It is so good. Like once they get to the building of the thing, it looks exactly like any picture I ever saw. That looks all great. Why can't you get this right? This is only...
I think the same reason that they didn't get the clothing right. I think the director and whoever else was in charge puts their emphasis on, we're going to do something really cool with science. It's going to look awesome.
It did.
But you're telling history, and you're telling a biopic. So you need to present the dude, and you need to present the history. And basically by not giving him a language coach, and by messing up the clothing, and not even thinking about the clothing, the fashion, you have messed up the history part.
And that brings us back to one of the gripes I had with it almost straight away, because I know the name of Oppenheimer, I know a bunch of the names of the people and what they did at the time, but I didn't look him up before I went, which I don't think I should be doing anyway before you see the picture. I want the picture to tell me, and I expected it to start with little Oppenheimer boy doing sciencey stuff and blowing up his yard. And it didn't. And one of the things that the nonlinear and the start with a grown-up Oppenheimer did was make it unclear of when he was. Because I didn't look him up. I looked him up now. He was born in 1904. I wasn't sure if he was in World War I or not. Because he could have been. But he was born in 1904. He was 10 when the war started. But it was 14 when it ended. If he had been 5 years older, he would have been in that war. Because I know other people who have had have a birth date 5 years earlier that were in that war.
Yeah, but the Americans were only in the last year.
He would have been 18 in the last year. So, yeah. I would have liked to have known that, and the film doesn't tell me that. So that left me a little bit floundering. Then the women, there are women. Did I mention the naked lady? And now the women are, he has a troubled girlfriend, very on and off, on her side, on and off. He wants to, but she's all over the place. And that takes so long that another lady comes in and swipes him up and gets knocked up. And the first one is called Jean and the other one's called Kitty. Very well portrayed by both ladies, by the way. But the film doesn't tell you that the first lady, the Jean lady, who was very troubled, was also a completely certified psychiatrist with degree and whole shebang. Not a slouch in altogether, because she comes across as naked lady. Good for sex, you know.
I'm sorry. This is so bad. You're literally the only woman you've only described two women. One is he knocks her up.
Yeah, he marries her.
She's a floozy. Okay, all right.
He marries her.
He's the floozy.
He is. He was the floozy.
And
yes.
The other woman is a scientist, but all we see of her is being naked. I'm sorry, that is so objectifying.
Yes, this movie doesn't tell us that she was qualified, and the one he knocks up, and in the end he marries her, and they have another kid. They have two kids altogether, and he stays with her for a long way. She was actually a fully qualified biologist and botanist with all qualifications and the whole shebang, but she's relegated to being the missus. Well, she was dressed.
Okay, baby machine then.
Yes. Jeez. Yes. And another thing that I have issue with, and I don't know if that's historical, because this is not. This is for a part, this is the movie doing that, but it's a part history that did that, because the history relegated one to being the wife and mother, and the other, Jean Tatlock, she was, she tried to do everything right. In 1930s, people were advanced enough to know that you can have psychiatrical problems, but they were not advanced enough to actually do anything about it. And she did the only thing about hers that at the time was the thing to do, which was study psychiatry, because she had a psychiatry problem. However, she committed suicide because she had she is now diagnosed as clinically depressed, but I don't know if that's a post-death diagnosis. the film shows it for what it is. It's not his fault. He feels guilty about it, but it's not his fault. There's nothing he could have done about this because she needed help. She needed actual help. But the film should have shown that she was a qualified psychiatrist and that Kitty was a full botanist and not a hanger out of dirty nappies. So...
What do you think that the that the director actually was trying to say? I mean, apart from like, it's on the 10, we're talking about Oppenheimer. Clearly not. That's clearly not what this movie is about. What is it, do you think, that he actually wanted to say with this movie?
So this movie is actually after a book from 2005, and I fully think they probably took this long to actually make it into a movie. Oppenheimer the Modern Prometheus. And that's made this a film subject about is that what he actually talks to Einstein about is responsibility for the invention. That's what the movie is about, and that movie does that very well. If you recut it to be in a proper order, or put some dates on it, a fan edit with some dates on, fan edit with some dates on it, and with the names of people, because that was another. I think I said it already, but there's a lot of people in it, and not everybody. Name and position comes with them everywhere they go. So I was having some problem following that part of it. It is. That's why the film is good, but not great because of all the flaws of it. And there's a lot of political stuff, but especially the post-event of bomb. There's a lot of political stuff that's all in here, and it is interesting, but only to people who are interested in that part of history. I don't care.
Is it very American centric?
Yeah. The whole thing is American centric because that's where it happens, and I. One of the thing the film ignores is radiation. There is a test firing of the ignition, and they don't say. I know because I extrapolated that's what it must have been. The ignition of the bomb needs to be tested, but the film doesn't make clear that. This, I don't think it carried much charge, if any. It just maybe that much. And they're altogether too close to it anyway. The film is aware that it's skipping it. After events happened and everybody's partying, somebody's puking in a hall, in a... And I think that's a reference to it. But that's all. They do name numbers later, which worry Oppenheimer a lot because they're bigger than he expected them to be. In one way, I appreciate that they didn't go all ick. He could have done. But it's not reality.
He got the sanitizer.
And he kind of did. So... I think he also was aware that he's not doing the women right, because there's a scene smack dab in the middle of the movie where Oppenheimer, smack dab in the middle of the story, is walking around the compound directing, because he's the big director. You go do that, you go do that, and somebody comes here. You have this to say. Now you go do that. And he's walking around, and he's walking to the entrance, by the entrance, and there's a lady going, they said I should go to the typing pool, but they didn't teach me how to type at Caltech. Oh, you're a scientist lady. You need to go scientisty. Go that way. And so the film realized, because I did look it up because I wanted to know which lady it was. I I think I probably found the lady. I'm going to put it here. There were 9 ladies, scientist ladies, and this is not. We're not talking about secretaries. We're not talking about everybody else doing stuff. Just scientist ladies. 9 scientist ladies to choose from. So I made a guess that it was, because it's the only one that's actually on the list, is a Lilli Hornig, who lasted a long time, by the way, so that was nice to look up. I'm very wary of looking people up and associated with this because radiation. So I think the film realized that, women problem. Later she has another scene where, again at the compound, they are basically, they have to do 17 different jobs and they have like 10 groups to do it in. So Oppenheimer keeps shoveling. So you want to do molecular stuff? We don't have time for that. You need to do that stuff, and we'll come to that. It's a mess. And I think the movie shows that really well. That's good. Lovely. Another good thing about the movie is that Oppenheimer was a chain smoker. He smokes. And that is realistic. Talking to the person with me who is older, and he confirms, he actually sent me a message to remember to include smoking. Yeah, because smoking.
Everybody smoked. Hollywood was promoting smoking.
And hats. Everybody wear hats.
Everyone wore hats outside, sometimes inside.
Yeah, and on the whole, and I think that's because they are actually doing some of the pictures that are from the period. So they're trying to look like the pictures. And of course, when Oppenheimer is walking outside, he's wearing a hat, so he has to wear a hat. So they're wearing more hats than they usually do in modern reenactments of older periods, because they wore hats every bloody where. So there's a lot of things that are really good about this film. The subject matter, it's about an atomic bomb and how it's, it's not going to get any better. So on that note, how about a nice game of chess? And that's my...
Yeah, I have one game of chess for you as a recommendation to watch after this as an antidote.
Barbie movie, by the way.
Oh, yes.
If you have a choice... Look, let's be very clear. If you have a choice or you have to choose between Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie, go watch the Barbie movie. If you're interested in Americana, and you've already seen the Barbie movie, and you don't know anything about Oppenheimer or not particularly interested, go see Asteroid City if you want Americana. Seriously.
There's an atomic bomb in that one.
There's an atomic bomb in that one. It's got all the vibe that this is trying to show is in that as well. So, and you had a third one.
Yes, I would recommend people watching Hidden Figures, which is a biographical drama about the women working at NASA.
It's a little later.
And anything regarding Bletchley Park, which
yes,
would be set in the UK.
Yeah. Bletchley Park, the code breakers of Bletchley Park, but don't watch. There's one Enigma movie which is the wrong one. If he has a gal, it's the wrong one because he was gay and he didn't have a gal. So unfortunate, and I think that's one with an actor you want to see, so it's very upsetting. Bletchley Park was not about nuclear; it was about cracking codes. But it's very interesting as well. So if you want the vibe, yeah. But if you want the actual vibe, watch a movie from the period.
Yeah.
So this movie that should have been a great movie is merely good with issues. Big, huge issues. So the film does talk about why a bomb and what came around to that. So I just wanted to make that clear. It does do that. For that, you have to see the movie. I mean, on your list of 3 movies to watch this month, it's the 3rd. But it's definitely worth. It's not a bad movie, seriously. So it makes its point, but be warned for content, and it's not for everyone. And I think a rating of R. That's because R is like 18 plus. That's probably overdone. I think anyone who understands a little bit about history should be able to watch this.
So 15 onwards.
Yes.
You have enough background knowledge from school history class.
Yes. And it does all the things that it absolutely needs to do. I'm not saying that it doesn't. It just does. The non-linear makes it hard to get the message to the viewer.
Do you think the audience is American or worldwide?
It is American history, so I think American, yes. But American audience is the largest eater of entertainment, so they have to make it for them. It's certainly not for us. No, we are there for.
We being Central Europe.
We being Central Europe and Dutch in particular. When I was looking at the list of people in it and to put on my little note paper, there was Dutch student. So I looked up who played Dutch student, British guy. That's basically the gist of it. The Dutch student is played by a British guy.
Hello, Hollywood. There will be a Dutch guy in Hollywood for you to cast.
They were in England, so they're in.
Okay, note to England. There are a lot of Dutch guys in England right now, and some of them will be actors. Oh my God.
It's convenience, and I don't think it's very important. So therefore, we are not important, and therefore. We are not the target audience for this. The target audience is people who are interested in American history. This is American history.
What about Japan?
This is not about Japan in any way, shape, or form. Just not. The film makes very clear that, and you kind of, if you look at history, you could kind of see that, is that this bomb was not made to be dropped on Japan. It was made to be dropped on Germany. And the film makes that clear. So things went differently. Things went differently for a lot of people. That's what also the film is about, that things will go differently than you expect. And they have a chappie who calculates what they can expect, and then still they get something different. They have a scientist who calculates stuff like that. Interesting factual. When they were in the early scene when Heisenberg has a talk, and he in Germany in 28 or when it was. Scientist person I was with said later, Heisenberg, that's nice. That's because Heisenberg is, I know all these names and I don't always know what they're famous for. Heisenberg is famous for, and they actually, the film knows this, because one of the very first things about atoms and stuff they talk about is just a little bit of theory just to show sciencey stuff, is something that almost anybody has learned into late high school physics class, is that a light is both a particle and a wave, and that is strange. Usually you don't know any more than that. The interesting thing about Heisenberg is that Heisenberg developed a set of formula that you can put in values and switches, because that's how formula works. If you do it one way, you get how the particle works, and if you do it the other way, in the same formula, you get it how the wave works. And that is why he's famous. And that is why he's in the movie.
Is that-
And the movie knows that.
Is that the Heisenberg principle?
Yes. And so that's these little tidbits of including Heisenberg, who actually was played by a German guy. Thank you. And his German, since I understand German, also understand German perfectly. When he did the text he says in the movie, he starts about something, atoms, blah, 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 and he goes on in English. And yes, goes on seamlessly. What you think he said before he started in the English, he said it in the German. Absolutely. Yes. It's good. It's fine. But some of the rest of the movie is... and that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.